Hello everyone again, it's Mr. Champion from Sandbach School. So today we're going to do a tutorial on painting. So we're looking in a bit more detail at how you can use watercolours to create a piece of work. So we're looking specifically at Teesha Moore, who you've probably seen her work before, and I'll post up a piece of her work on Show My Homework to give you a bit more of an idea. So Teesha Moore tells stories. She's a storyteller about her life, and she makes these journals about her sort of everyday life. Now artists are really good at telling stories, and across the centuries artists have told stories of different times from when they lived, and all their work is about what's going on around them. So it's a really accurate social commentary on those events. Sometimes more accurate than the historians themselves, because they are so detailed and they are so true to life, these stories. So we're going to look at your story, and at the moment lots is going on, and you're staying at home, you're probably isolating, you're probably with your family, but these stories need to be told and people need to understand what it's like to experience that. So this is what I want from you, and I want a little bit of story out of you about your individual life at the moment, and let's make it interesting. Okay. So we're going to have a go at drawing this out, and I don't want you to worry too much about the drawing. It's not as important as the painting is and your bit of story. So just dead simple, in the same way we did with the last tutorial, all I'm doing is trying not to press on too hard, because really watercolour is see-through and you will see this drawing through the watercolour if you press on too hard. So just make sure you're moving your paper around, and you can adjust this to however you want it, but as you can see my arm is staying in the same place. I'm just drawing nice even shapes that can, and curves that can be rubbed out, so I'm not pressing on too hard. And if you're struggling or really struggling with this, you can put it up against your computer screen and have a go at drawing it and tracing it out like that. First thing we need is make sure we've got a palette for our watercolours, and make sure everything's pretty clean. So you start with clean water and a clean palette. Okay. Now first thing we need to know is that watercolours are a dry pigment. Okay. So the pigment is just the colour that's in them, the raw powder colour that's in them. So the more I scrub a particular colour with my brush, the more I scrub, the deeper and the richer the colour will get. So if I keep going, the colour will get thicker and thicker and thicker, as you can see. Now what I want to do is start quite light with water, more water, so I can add layers and layers with watercolour. It's more difficult to take off, and also the see-through, so any layer that you put on top, you'll see the layer beneath. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow, okay, I'm going to mix it into one section here. Now that's a bit dark for me, so I'm just going to add a little bit more water, and that makes it a little bit more see-through and a little bit lighter. Okay, so I'm starting with quite a lot of water on my brush, and I'm going to fill this area here, okay, because you can see it's quite bright there, all the way across. Take a little bit more paint because my brush is starting to dry out a little bit. Now as you can see, some areas are darker than others with yellow, and the reason for that is where I've gone straight back into the paint, there's more pigment there, so it's actually a stronger colour. So what I'm going to try and do now is blend that across the whole piece so it's even. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and highlight a few bits on the end of the nose here. This is a bit lighter. So all I do is I'm just going to clean my brush in the water so there's no pigment left in it, dry it on the paper, and this acts now as like a little sponge to take off little highlights. So I do it again, a little sponge, and it takes off little bits of paint where I want them a little bit light, so just above the nose here and just where the bit above the lip is here. So I'm just going to colour this section. Now you don't want to go up to anything damp because that will bleed into one colour into another. So I'm just going to, this bit's dry actually now, so I'm okay. I'm going to fill this section. Now there's quite a lot of water in that. You can see it shining off the paper. So I'm going to mix another colour into it whilst it's still wet. So I'm going to use this darker blue here. And just see what that looks like. And I'm going to actually blend that colour into the other one. So if I run my brush down one side, I'm going to use a bit more blue. Down one side. Now it's really wet now, it's really damp, so I'm just going to dry my brush off on the paper, and I'm going to actually try and blend those two colours together using what's on the paper. Now remember, you don't want to scrub the paper because it will start to pick up, but I'm just moving one colour into another and blending those two. So I could go back with the green and try and blend those two colours together. A bit more green. So I'm going to use this colour now to darken this section. So take a little edge of it. I don't want too much water on my brush now because I'm doing some quite delicate bits. So I'm just going to layer that underneath here in the darkest sections, like so. Down here and a little bit down here. Now it depends how much you want to put on, depending on how quick you are, because you don't want this to dry. I'm going to show you why in a minute. So I'm just going to clean my brush, clean it in the water, and then take a little bit off there. I don't want it full of water. So I'm just going to blend these edges now with a little bit of water in my brush. So I'm trying to follow the contours. Now eventually my brush is going to get loads of paint back in it, so I'll need to clean it again, which is pretty much now. So clean it again in the water, get some of the water off it. I'm just going to go back in and blend these colours. So again, I've mixed quite a dark yellow now because it's my third layer. I'm going to try and blend this out. Now it kind of fits in all the way over the top here. A little bit more underneath this section because I'm going to blend it again like I did with the other section. Like that. Clean my brush again. I'm just going to blend the edges. A little bit of water again. Okay. And that's kind of the next phase. Now I could add a little bit of orange down here if I want, back into that yellow. And again, just try my brush again. Try and blend those colours into one another. Now I want to kind of leave this paper to dry because it's getting a little bit, it's starting to pick up a little bit and I don't want to ruin it. So I'm just going to leave that to dry before I add the final details in. The original dark shadow that I used, I've just mixed a little bit more blue into that, and I'm just going to add in some more details there. So around the nose here, there's a little bit more shadow, so I just want to pick that out a little bit, using just the tip of my brush, like that. So I'm going to blend those again, just clean my brush like I did before, get it all off on my paper. I'm just going to use a bit of water, it's a bit damp. Use a bit of water just to blend those colours in. Now if I've got too much water on my brush, you'll see exactly what I mean, it'll just go all over the place. So I'm just trying to make sure there's not too much water using my paper, a little bit more. So just blend those colours and you should have a little bit of a darker shadow in there now. So with this section I've put some little thin lines on there, some little details and little patchwork pieces. So you can see on Teesha Moore's work, she does lots of these. Some we can do with pen later on, but I'm going to show you how to do some little details with a bigger brush. All I do is just rub it on the side of my palette, and all that'll do is just take off most of the water. You can even just put your fingers through it and take a little bit of water off by doing that. So just make sure I've got a tiny bit of paint on the end. I'm just going to use the fine tip and use my little finger just to rest it on the paper, just to get these marks. So I'm just keeping it at a nice straight angle and my hand just can move really gently in one direction. So once I've got a certain line, I can just kind of make this up really. It's completely up to you what you do with your patterns, but as you can see, just taking my time, using not too much paint on my brush to get nice even thin little marks on my paper. Completely up to you, but the brush should go on and on quite a long time really, but don't worry about getting it wrong, because you can always go over it with a darker colour if you need to. So once you got to this stage and you've got quite a bit of painting in, you can start adding some of these darker sections in the background. They just kind of bring out those lighter colours a little bit and make them come out of the page a little bit more. So you can add some dark colours in the background, but you can also use pen to neaten up any of your pen work, your paint work. So she uses quite a lot of pen, Teesha Moore, in her work. So I'm going to use just a black biro to shape quite a few of these sections, and what it does, it just neatens off any rough edges I might have on my painting. So anywhere you want, to be honest. You can even use it as pattern work. If you're struggling with the finer detail, you can use it for patterns on your leaves or whatever bits of pattern that you've got. You can use it to shape and define other sections. You can even highlight the already great pattern work that you've got in yours already. And as you can see, that almost instantly brings out your painting and gives it a bit more. So as you can see on Teesha Moore's work, I've just got a little bit here off the picture just so you can see it, but she writes kind of thoughts and things that are going on in her head at that moment into her sketchbooks and into her work. So I want you to do the same. So I've just got a little phrase here, the stay at home saves lives, so I'm going to start with that. But you can do anything. You can talk to us about your daily routine, or the things that you and maybe your brothers and sisters are doing, things that you wouldn't normally do, and things that you wouldn't normally struggle with, or anything like that. It's a really good way to kind of vent, or it's a really good way to talk about positive things. But basically just tell us about what's going on with you at the moment. So you can use a black biro again, same way that I used to neaten off these edges. It's a really good way and it stands out really clearly. So I'm just kind of drawing these letters out. I quite like this font, so I'm going to try and keep that shape. So all I'm doing is using my pen. I'll move my paper around. I can't do that on this video, but you make sure you move your paper around to keep it in a place that is comfortable for you. That means that your hand isn't moving around in different directions, okay? Take your time with this, because it's easy to ruin a piece of work just with rushing this stage, okay? But just tell us about what's going on with you at the moment. Tell us about what you're enjoying about being off, what you're struggling with, and things that are relevant to you right at this current time. We've all got something we want to share. I think this is a really good way to do it. Okay, so this is definitely not finished, but it just gives you a bit of an idea of where to go. So things just to recap on, and things that you should be focused on. One, this needs to be a bit of a diary almost, a little bit of information about you, but also think about how you're blending colours. So I want to see how you blend colours from one colour to another using just on a damp surface. As well, remember to clean your brush in the water, take all the water off it with your paper towel to blend colours away, but try and go through this step by step like I've done in this video to build up your piece. You should have a full finished piece. You don't have to follow one of these. You can adjust these completely to whatever you want to do. So all this pattern work you can change, all of this, the composition of the whole thing you can change, or you can even go online, have a look at her work and try and piece together new things. You might even want to print out some portraits of you and your family to kind of give it a little bit more of a personal touch and cut those out if you've got that option. You don't have to. Okay. Good luck with it, guys. Thank you.